Okay. The green box, the financial fitness program, which means it's a whole system. I want to walk through. This is going to be the logical talk of the weekend. This is going to be the one that says, let's put all the emotion that we've talked about, let's put all the heart that you've seen on this stage, let's put all the other factors, and let me help you understand the reasons behind the emotion, the logic behind the emotions that you see on this stage. The first thing, you keep hearing about this term, the financial matrix. And the financial matrix is a system of control. The banks get to create money out of thin air, loan it to you, and then you get to spend the rest of your life paying it back. You ever hear of getting a mortgage and someone gets a 30-year mortgage? And so what the bank does is they literally, in their ledgers, in the computers now, they say, okay, here's $150,000 if you get a mortgage. And then for the next 30 years, you get the privilege of working on a job in order to pay back money that they instantaneously created out of thin air. And if you don't pay it back, guess what they get? They get your house. You're like, no, wait a minute. If you went and wrote a check and you didn't have the money in your bank to pay for it, what do they call that? Fraud. If you were to make some counterfeit money and use it as real money, what do they call that? But if the banks do it, they call that loaning you money. Something to make you go, And so the financial matrix, we can't go and change the financial matrix right away until we change your financial matrix. In other words, a free person can afford their opinion. And so we want to help you, first of all, get out of the matrix to where you can afford your opinion. And how we do that is two ways. To escape the financial matrix, you need to learn how to play financial defense and financial offense. And so the defense is learning how to spend less than you make. If you spend less than you make, compounded over time, you make a lot of money. You end up saving a ton of money. That's step one. Step two, financial offense, is learning to make more year after year after year. If you increase your skills and make more money, then make more money than the cost of living increase. If cost of living is going up 2% and you're getting a 2% raise, you didn't get a raise. And so those are the two things. And are you playing defense? Yes or no? Are you playing offense? Yes or no? And so the financial matrix is just a simple 2x2 matrix to identify this graph, this quadrants, to identify where you are. And if you take a look at the traditional 5-year plan, your income goes up somewhere around 25, it levels off. And the average American, from age 25 to when they retire, somewhere between 65 and 70, they get cost of living raises only. So their income is flatline. And then you retire and you lose 1/2 to 2/3 of what you already didn't think was enough before. Now, who in their right mind would can you imagine an 18-year-old kid and say, please draw out the income over age curve that you would like to live with? Can you imagine any 18-year-old kid saying, sign me up for what 95% of Americans do? I would like to make a little more income in my early years, man, just to give me some super hope. But somewhere around 25, put it flatline, baby. I want to earn it the old-fashioned way. Nobody would draw that graph. And so when you look at that and say, well, if that's the graph of 95% of Americans, how would you play defense and offense in that graph? Well, visually, here's what defense is. Defense is when your spending curve is less than your income curve. And you say, well, that should be pretty easy. I mean, if you know someone that makes $50,000 a year, have you ever noticed that people make $50,000 a year? Most of them are broke at $50,000 a year. And if you talk to them, they said, if I only made 75, things would be so different. And yet, then you go talk to the person making 75, and what do they say? Man, if I only made 100, things would be different. You understand that if you don't get your spending less than your income, if you don't get the discipline of doing that now, That it doesn't matter what you make. In fact, I would tell you that if you do learn how to make $1 million a year, you're actually in worse shape. Because if you make $1 million a year and you don't understand financial literacy, you can give yourself a $5 million problem. Versus if you only make $50,000, you give yourself about a $400,000 problem. So like, so that's what God has been protecting me all this time. That's one way to interpret it. I think that he might say, learn the habit of defense. So there's your defense. Let's see what offense is. Ho, ho, look at that. That is clearly you've broken out of the mold where you are earning more above just cost of living because you're improving your skills. So the offense, you improve your skills yearly so that you start getting more income wherever you work and whatever business you're doing. The defense is whatever you're making, spend less than you make. That's the two rules. And so when we look at it into the financial matrix quadrants, the first quadrant is offense, no. Defense, no. And what we label that one is the broke quadrant. And 50% of Americans, if you total up the household's total assets and their total liabilities, their debts, it's zero or worse. Can you imagine that? Let's go back to that 18-year-old kid. And you say there's only 4 quadrants that you're going to fall into on offense and defense. Which quadrant would you like to be a part of? Who in their right mind would say, give me the broke one? I don't want to accumulate any assets. I want to live just at that limit. I want to work my whole life. The problem with the broke quadrant is not just that you're not playing defense and offense, it's the absolute worst spot on the matrix. And I do not believe that 50% of Americans planned to be in that spot. What happened? What happens is they've got these dreams, they've got things that they want, and they keep getting inundated by advertisements and all kinds of marketing gimmicks that say, same as cash, you just sign here and we give you what you want. And they give you some material thing that over time depreciates, and then you pay monthly payments on it over and over. And if it was just one, you might be able to survive. But then they tell you that you also need a car, and you sign for that one. And then they say, oh, well, you probably want some new furniture, sign for that one. Hey, you may want a vacation package, sign for that. And you sign so much that the next thing you know, that you're living at a point to where you have more money going out than you're coming in every month, and you're living right on the edge. And so what happens eventually is the only reason why you don't just keep increasing your debt is because the bank no longer gives you any. Anybody ever try to get a credit card and you couldn't get it? Anybody try to get a new car loan and they wouldn't give it to you? Anybody try to get a bigger house and you couldn't qualify for the loan? In other words, the banks just say, we can't loan you any more money. And so what life becomes for 50% of Americans is captured in the common saying, I owe, it's off to work we go. You're not chasing dreams anymore. 50% of Americans are living lives of quiet desperation. Their dreams have collapsed down to nothing. Their debt has gone as high as they possibly can. They can't borrow anymore. So they can't even think about a dream. And so the danger of living in this quadrant is an attitude of hopelessness. Where can we go? We can't get any more debt, so we can't really even in the illusion of living our dreams anymore. All I do is I wake up and I go to work because I have bills to pay. And the debt has gone up to the point where all of your discretionary income goes to service the debt. It's a terrible quadrant to stay in. But if you're there, the good news is the green box has answers to the challenge. The green box can help you out. And you say, oh, Orrin, how can you say that? And listen, if you have not picked up the Financial Fitness Times, this is the most amazing booklet, magazine. This is amazing. These are real people with real testimonies, real stories of applying the green box principles and escaping the financial matrix. You read stories of wiped out $20,000 of credit card debt. You read another story, wiped out $100,000. You read another story, $50,000 of student loans gone. And you're like, well, who are they? And you can look at this name, And when you come to the next major convention, you'll be walking around and you'll see him in the hallway. And you're like, wait a minute, that's you, that's you, Grace. I saw you on the front cover of the Financial Fitness Times. And when you read these stories, you start saying, if they can do it, then I can do it. If they were in the broke quadrant, or maybe the next quadrants that I share, if they were in that quadrant and were able to escape, then so can I. If you're in the broke quadrant now, do not develop an attitude of hopelessness. Because if you're here this weekend and you've got the green box, you've got a plan to escape. And so the next one. Well, what if you are playing defense? No. I don't spend. I learned that a long time ago. I spend less than I make, Orrin. All right, well, what about your offense? I haven't figured that one out. I just pretty much get cost of living raises at best. And tightwad is a better quadrant than the broke one. At least you've learned the financial literacy of spending less than you make, so it can start compounding for you. But what happens in this is you're playing defense, you're not playing offense. You're disciplined enough to spend less than you make, but you don't have an offensive plan to start making more. And so your whole life ends up being no. Hey, do you want to do this? No, we can't afford it. Hey, do you want to do this? No, we can't afford it. Hey, do you want to do this? No, we can't afford it. And even if you're good at that, even if you're like, oh, I am steel-trapped good, you better hope your spouse is on the same page as you. Otherwise, you would get to have unique conversations with your spouse like I did for years. Because when I said no, she said yes. And then it was like, no, yes, no, yes, no, no, yes, yes. And it would be very interesting. And even if you both are saying no, do you know how to say no consistently for 30 or 40 years? I mean, you know why most people, when they hear about the financial fitness program, if you don't represent it properly as both defense and offense, they think you're telling them that you're going to have to live a life of saying no for the rest of your life. Who wants to do that? You mean, exactly. It's like, why would you want to say, you mean that what you want me to do is say no to all my dreams so that I can be debt-free? Most people say, I'll take my dreams in debt. And then I'm telling you, you're asking the wrong question. Why don't you live your dreams and have no debt? That's the right one. That's the right one. So we got to come up for the tightwad. We got to come up with a plan for you to make some more income. We got to come up with a personal development plan for you to start growing your skills. The common saying for the tightwad is, we can't buy it because we can't afford it. And the danger of the attitude is you develop a scarcity. You think that there's only a limited amount and it's never going to go up because you don't understand the offense. And so you just say no your whole life, or a complacently, this is the best it's ever going to be. And what I'm saying is you start throwing away your dreams. Ben Franklin probably said it best. Most people die at 25 and wait till 70 to be buried. Is that really the way we should live? No. We don't. Tightwad, it's a better quadrant than the broke, but it's certainly not optimum. Well, what about the next one? Hey! Okay, I'm not the broke quadrant, and I'm not the tightwad. Man, I am making good money. Well, I made $100,000. I made $200,000. I made $500,000 last year, Orrin. I am happening on offense. And how's your defense? Non-existent. So you're like a football team that can score 50 points, but you give up 55. And a loss is a loss. It doesn't matter how good the offense is. I mean, if your offense is tracking, man, I'm getting 10% more income. I'm own a business on this. But if your defense, you're spending just as much as you're making, do you understand? It's like jumping on a gerbil wheel and saying, today I'm going to run faster than I've ever run before. And you sprint like crazy and you work up a sweat. And when you get off, you're like, I still don't have anything accumulated. Why? Because you spent everything you made. Here's a novel concept, one of my favorite all-time statements from Claude Hamilton. It's not delayed gratification if you don't have the money and you don't buy it. Delayed gratification is if you actually made enough money to buy something and you still delay. Now, notice it's delayed gratification. It's a short-term denial. It's not a long-term denial like the tightwad quadrant. This is short-term. Can you delay your gratification for a year or two so you can take that extra money and wipe out all your debt? Have you ever calculated for your household how much of your money is going to service debt? Have you ever looked at, let's say, your $2,500 mortgage or $2,000 mortgage, and if you actually looked, I've been paying on that for 3 years, and you realize $1,800 or $1,900 of that $2,000 is going just to service the interest. When you pay that $2,000 check and you're like, I'm 1 month closer to owning my house, and you look at it and you're like, you mean I paid $100 on principal? $100? $1,900 just got poured down the financial matrix hole? Now I'd ask you this way. What if you owned your house outright? If you understand what I just said, that's like going on offense and giving yourself a $1,900 a month raise. Because $1,900 used to get poured. What type of business could you build if you had an extra $1,900 coming in every month? Crazy, crazy. So the common saying for the status quadrant, let's buy it. We can afford the monthly payments. Woohoo! Now the problem with this, you keep doing that, it's like, because you're always saying, next year I'll make more money so we can do that. What happens the first year? Some glitch in the plan. It's like Mike Tyson said, everybody has a strategy until you're punched in the face. Has life punched anybody in the face before, financially? Anybody lost a job? Anybody got a health challenge? When you got husband and wife both out there, man, combined income, we make $400,000 a year. But if you're spending $400,000 a year, you're still not getting ahead. And what happens if one of the couple either loses a job or something changes or a health challenge, and for 6 months they don't make an income? Thankfully, the banks are very understanding of that. I'm sure your bank will call you up and say, hey, John, we hear your wife's having some health challenges. You just hold those payments. Don't worry. We're not even going to accumulate interest because we care. You think that happens? Or they say, we'll take your house. We'll go ahead and take your cars. Cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching. All of it fireside sales. And here's this status person that on the surface looked good, smelled good, everything looked awesome. And then one tug of the bobber and they go under. You say, oh, that doesn't really happen that often. It happens all the time. In 2008, it happened so many times, even the auctioneers couldn't keep up. The auctioneers come to your house when you've lost everything and they sell off all the things that you thought you owned, but you actually just owed. It's interesting because if you read Thomas Stanley's book, Millionaire Next Door, he said the shocking thing about auctioneers is they're twice as likely to be millionaires as any other profession. They're twice as likely. Do you know why that is? Because auctioneers get real life examples of people that thought they were doing really good until one tug of the bobber bankrupted them. And they come in and they see story after story of hurting families, and it registers with them, this spending less than you make is not just a principle, it's something that needs to be lived. And so auctioneers become millionaires at twice the rate of any other profession, according to Millionaire Next Door, for that very principle. Listen, if you're in the status quadrant, let me tell you something. The banks love you. You are their favorite clientele. And they're pulling for you to make more money because they know when you make more money, they make more money. because they know you don't have the discipline to say no even for just a couple years to live debt-free, so that they receive 20, 30, 40 years. Your best efforts are poured into the financial matrix whole because you haven't learned to say no for just a couple years so that you can live debt-free. The common danger, and I've seen this so many times, one side is the arrogance. They show it all, they owe it all, and they begin to think they know it all. That's one side. But there's another side to the status, and I believe a lot of people in this quadrant come in to this community and are looking for answers in the green box because of this. They've awoken to the fact that every day they wake up and they're one misstep away from losing it all. It's a very painful truth. But each one of, whether you're in the broke quadrant, whether you're in the tightwad quadrant, whether you're in the status quadrant, the answer is the same. The answer to your challenge is in the green box. You can take this information. There's so many that think, well, if you're making good money, then you don't need the green box. Au contraire. You need to learn the principles of defense. If you're playing good defense, then you don't need the green box. Au contraire. You need to learn offense. If you're in the broke quadrant, you just pretty much need to learn everything. But the good news is you can, and you can move to this. There's a path from the tightwad to financially free. There's a path from the broke to the financially free. There's a path from the status to the financially free. What does the financially free quadrant do? They play offense and defense and compound it over time to live outside of the financial matrix. They owe no one anything, and all the money they make outside of paying taxes, they get to keep their money so it compounds for them. Can you imagine doing that year after year and watching your dreams grow, and you can do it living a cash lifestyle? Is anybody interested in learning that? You got it. You have it. Improving your defense, improving your skills to go on better offense. This group lives their dreams debt-free. The common saying for this group, and by the way, 1 out of 100 people, no more than 1 out of 100 people. If you talk to 100 people, you'll find one that's truly living a financially free lifestyle. The common saying, let's sleep on it first. And then if we truly want it, let's set a goal for it. Oh, but Orrin, we already have the cash for it. We could go buy it right now and pay cash for it. Yep, you could. But why would you rob the motivation that whatever it is you want? Man, we want to take that vacation, we have the money. Use it as motivation to set a better goal, and you can even improve your offense even further. So it's not saying no, it's just delaying the gratification so that you can use whatever it is as inspiration to go further. The common danger of the financially free quadrant is when you start thinking that you've arrived. That, man, now that I've made it, hey, and you kind of like close the doors like, I'm financially free and everybody else is on their own. That's not the right spirit. The right spirit for someone that gets financially free ought to be, well, then take those principles. Like I always say, man, if I talk to someone in the financially free, I tell them to get the green box. Because everybody they know, if they're the one, that means there's 99 of their friends that aren't the one. And that they need this help. And when you're a blessing, when you've been blessed, it's important to be a blessing. And so you can take the principles that you learned that work for you and teach other people how to get out of the financial matrix. Now let's put it all together. Let's put it all together into the 45-year plan. Here is the financially free 45-year plan. You see the offense? It's moving up. If you go read the Financial Fitness Times, you'll read stories of people that have received 15, 20% raises where they work. Why? Because they developed skills. They developed skills that were marketable. And their bosses came up to them and said, man, your attitude has changed so much. We would like to give you a special assignment, and it comes with a 10% raise. And so now you're starting to get raises above the cost of living. But look, now this is the key one. Notice what happens to the defense Just because your offense went up doesn't mean the defense, your income, your expenses have to increase with it. Can you see as that gap keeps getting further and further? When the income's going up, but the expenses are staying steady, what happens is that gap can be taken and thrown against your debt until you're living debt-free. Then it gets crazy, because watch what happens. Look at the debt. Look at your debt. You, like most people, have figured out, oh no, at 30 years old, realize, look at my debt. I bought a house, I've got a car, oh, I've got a student loan, and you've got this debt way significantly higher than your income. But instead of being complacent there, you're saying, you know what? I'm going to go on offense, improving my skills. I'm going to keep my defense and delay my gratification. And year after year, as that gap increases, what are you doing? Hammering debt. See that debt go down? By the time you're 40 years old, if you do this for 10, 15, 20-year period, increasing your offense, keeping your defense steady, every single person in this room in the next 15 to 20 years could be 100% out of the financial matrix. Does that interest anybody here? Man. If you say, I don't know if that can happen, then I'd say read these stories, because every one of these stories is someone that did what I'm proposing that you do. Is it going to take work? Is it going to take discipline? Is it going to take a community of other people encouraging you to stay the course? Absolutely. Look at your dreams, though. Every year as you're wiping out debt, as you're paying down debt, you're no longer pouring money down the financial matrix hole, which means your dreams are getting bigger and bigger and bigger. By the time you're 40, can you imagine being 40 years old and having no debt? That $1,500, $2,000 a month that goes into the financial matrix just for your mortgage, it goes into your dream, your bucket list. What type of vacation could you take after 3 or 4 months having $8,000, $10,000 cash sitting there? You're like, you know what? We're going to set a goal to go on vacation. But honey, we already have the cash. Yeah, but if we set a goal, we could improve our income even more and make it even more fun. This is the financially free. Does this graph look a little bit better than the average 45-year plan of 95% of Americans? Well, then let's talk turkey. Come on now, tell me exactly then, what do I need to do to make that happen? 3 steps, just 3 steps. Separate you from all of your dreams debt-free. The first one I talked about, learn how to play defense. The second one, learn how to play offense. And here's the third one, and I started hinting at this one just a few seconds ago. You gotta find a community. And let me tell you why. Because the best information in the world, the Green Box is filled with the absolute best financial information in the world. But the best information in the world is not power. You hear the saying, knowledge is power. And I'm here to tell you that knowledge alone is not power. Knowledge applied is power. What the community does is it provides the inspiration to apply the information. All of us know how to be financially free. I could bring every single one of you up here individually and say, how would you get wealthy? And we could talk for a bit, and eventually this would come out. Well, I guess if you spend less than you make and compound it over time, you would get wealthy. And I would say, winner, winner, chicken dinner. That's exactly right. And then I would turn to you and say, now that you have the knowledge, show me the wealth that you created, since you certainly know this. And you'd be like, well, you see, I'm like, what happened? You knew it, but you didn't do it. And what happened is you had the information, but you didn't have the inspiration. I could take you to free libraries filled with books that you can check out for free, and I could walk you through, and I bet you I could put 10, 15, 20 books, and I say, if you read these books and apply the information from these books, it would change your life amazingly. And yet all those books are in libraries around the world. And how many lives are not being changed? See, it's not the information. It's the lack of inspiration. It's the lack of accountability. It's the lack of a community that's doing those things and encouraging you to change those habits, those habits that have been holding you back. Aristotle said, we are what we repeatedly do. The financially wealthy person, they're wealthy because they repeatedly do the right habits. They found the inspiration to apply the inspiration. For most people, because they're swimming in a current of other people, everybody trying to keep up with the Joneses, all of them are going into the financial matrix tank because they're trying to race each other down a hole. And I'm pointing you in a different direction. But it's so countercultural that left to yourself, if you go to your friends, guess what? I'm going to spend less than I make. And they're going to laugh at you. Man, I'm going to do that. In 10 years, I'm going to have this, and they're going to laugh at you. You won't make it 6 months. And on your own, that may be true. But what if you associated with a community that would bring you up here and celebrate when you wiped out a credit card debt? What if you were around a group that you could send out a message and it would go to everybody in the community that would hear your testimony? What if you got written up on the front page of the Financial Fitness Times? What I'm saying is that birds of a feather flock together. That you start associating with different people, you start accumulating different habits. And as you take those different habits and apply it over time, you start accumulating the income that used to be poured down the financial matrix hole. Join a community of like-minded people. Now because some of you are like, well, how do I know this defense and offense is even the right thing? Who says, Orrin? So I figured I would give you I could put up 50 names of extremely wealthy people and point to everything that they teach on finances you would find in the financial fitness. But I figured, why do 50 when I can point you to the wealthiest investor of all time? That this gentleman, starting from nothing, who invested $5,000 to get started, and he compounded that $5,000. I'm going to read you his quotes. Let's see if his quotes tie in with what I've been teaching you so far. Warren Buffett, here's what, he didn't say the word defense, but I'll read you the quote and you tell me if this is not teaching the defense. Warren Buffett, I think the biggest mistake is not learning the habits of saving properly early, because saving is a habit. That sounds like defense to me, doesn't it? But Orrin, everybody knows if you want to make a lot of money, you got to have a lot of money. And since most of us don't have money, you got to leverage money. You got to borrow money to make money, right? Haven't you heard that? If you borrow money at this rate and make money at that rate and you make the difference, other people's money, use other people's money. Well, let's see what Warren Buffett says about this. And by the way, I teach the same thing. Do not leverage money, because all you're doing is you're dangling a sword above your head on the smallest piece of string. And the first cut of that sword, boom, you're gone. And when the bubble bursts, all of a sudden people don't have the money to keep buying the things that they were buying. And all of a sudden customers don't show up, and yet they still expect you to pay for the leveraged money even though you don't have the money coming in to pay for it. And guess what? You lose. Game over. Is that the way to live? What did Buffett say? Why, he says, if you're smart, you're going to make a lot of money without having to borrow. Wow. Wait a minute. Warren Buffett, the second wealthiest person, the number one wealthiest investor, has never borrowed money to make money. So if you don't agree with that statement, don't argue with Mr. Woodward. Argue with Mr. Buffett. What about offense? What did Warren Buffett teach on offense? The best investment you can make is an investment in yourself. I mean, how many times you hear people, I'm going to buy this extra house, I'm going to buy this property, and I'm going to flip this, and I'm going to do that. And they'll spend all kinds of money on some material thing. And then you turn around and say, would you like to start a personal development program to improve your skills? They look at you like deer in the headlights. What are you talking about? I don't have money for that. You don't have money to invest in the only brain you're ever going to be issued? I mean, I've seen people, they get a fancy car and they're like, nothing but the absolute best gas. I get the double, triple premium gas for this baby. That engine's going to be treated with care. Would you like to get on a personal development program? Heck no, my brain's worthless. But this car, this will get the best. Does anybody see how crazy that is? It's your brain that produced the results to get the car, unless you borrowed it and your brain's hurting you. Okay. Put a smile on that one. Okay. What does he say? Oh, well, here's another statement. The more you learn, the more you'll earn. Warren Buffett in 1991 talked to the Notre Dame graduating class. And he said, I'll give you $100,000. Right now, I will write you a check for $100,000. Come back and sign the contract. I want 10% of your income earning potential for the next 40 years, and I'll give you $100,000 right now. And then he said something key for offense. But, if you take a Dale Carnegie public speaking class and develop your ability to communicate your ideas better, I will write you a check for $150,000 right now for 10% of your income earning potential. He said the best class I ever took was a Dale Carnegie personal development class on learning how to public speak, because I realized if I was going to be a big investor, I needed to learn how to communicate my ideas, which he's done so well speaking around the world, writing reports that people read from 40 years ago still on the principles of money. Warren Buffett practiced what he preached. So you have defense. You have offense. Now let's break it down to the green box. How does the green box apply those principles that I've just read? Well, first of all, we've mentioned financial defense. When you get the green box, do not set the green box on your shelf to admire its green look. Yes, I put this underneath my pillow, and by a process of osmosis, I am getting smarter by the day. Because it will not happen. Just as if you buy exercise bike and don't lose weight, nothing wrong with bike. If you buy green box and do not get financially fit, nothing wrong with box. It must be applied. Learn and apply the financial fitness program Defense. And specifically for defense, we have a monthly program designed to help you apply the defensive principles. It's called the Financial Fitness Services Program. We do not produce a product that does not help you escape the financial matrix. We understand that information married to inspiration will equal success. And every product we produce has a specific reason to help you escape the matrix. The Financial Fitness Services has the protector, identity theft. If anybody's lost their identity online and realize how much money that has cost you, you will understand that playing a good defense, having that product, awesome. If you've ever had a situation where you lost a loved one and they didn't have a will, and you go to probate and 10, 15, 20% of their net worth is lost and haggling with probate lawyers, etc., you'll be thankful that you have a prepaid legal setup to where you can have your will. Everybody here should have a will. But I don't plan on dying. Nobody does. It's not something you plan on. The 17th, that's my day. I planned it. At least you shouldn't. The Saver Program. If you're going to spend money anyway, then you might as well buy it and save 10, 15, 20% or more through the Saver Program. And here, one of the keys is the tracker. Do you know that if a person would just start tracking their expenses, so much is revealed when you can just look at it like, I had no idea I was spending that much money in this area. I'm going to make changes. That program, the Financial Fitness Services, is a gold mine of defensive information, all available to you for $60. But Orrin, I'm trying to get out of debt. I can't afford to, quote, spend $60. And I'm like, if you think that when you're investing in yourself, that's an expense, you've got the wrong thinking already. And when you read the green box, you'll understand. It's never an expense to invest in better information applied. What about the financial offense? Again, take the green box, learn and apply the financial fitness program offense, as you heard Lori up here teaching some of those general principles. I love this next one. Commit to a personal development program. This is the one in America that most people are losing. 50%, everybody in the broke quadrant and everybody in the tight quadrant, they've lost out on the simple principle of a planned offense. The beginning of all offensive strategies is read, listen, associate, and apply. When you pick up the green box, you've got books in here. You have a workbook in here. You have CDs in here. You have information to apply. Start reading, listening, and associating today. If you do not know, if you're flatline on that offense, the reason you're flatline is you're violating Buffett's rule on the more you learn, the more you earn. And the personal development, oh, here's the second one. Work with your mentor. When you buy the green box, you bought it from somebody. That person is committed to help you because you've just joined a community. When you get the green box, you are now part of a community of other people journeying from those three quadrants into the financially free. You're part of a team. You've got the green box, but it's not by yourself or even for yourself. You're part of a team of people escaping the financial matrix. You can win together as a team. Look at the products that are available in your personal development program. You have Rascal Radio. I call it the Pandora of personal development. Anybody ever had Pandora? You got a favorite band and you put that band in there and they'll play all the music associated with it? What if you did the same with your personal development? You start listening to all the speakers like, oh, man, Chris Brady, he's my favorite. And you put Chris Brady in there and it starts popping up all the CDs, all the audios from Chris Brady that you can listen to right from your smartphone. It's on-demand personal development information. A Life Library is filled with 5, 10, 15-minute clips of different content that you can take and apply immediately into your life to improve. A leadership platform that has people like Jim Rohn, Jack Welch, all of the big names are in that leadership platform, all included in there. Audiobooks, language learning, and a sales training. If you want to improve your offense, learn how to influence people. As Buffett said, just one class on public speaking was worth $50,000 more for him. What's it worth to you? How long would it take you to invest $50,000 at $60 a month? Because that's what that personal, the PDP is $60 a month. I think that's a pretty good payback on a $50,000 improvement in your income over time, according to Warren Buffett. You see, guys, to me, this business is so no-brainer. The concepts are so no-brainer because you play defense, you play offense, you have a community to do so. And look at this one. The financial fitness community. The financial look, I love these 3 A's. I absolutely love this community. I love being here sharing with you. The 3 A's of every community, successful community: association, accountability, and acclamation. I mentioned earlier, birds of a feather flock together. Learn from those who have the results. When you see someone up here on the stage speaking and teaching, there are people who have produced the results. We don't put somebody up here and say, what do you think you're going to do? We bring people up here to speak and teach on subjects where they are proven to produce the results over time. The inspiration leads to the application, and the culture that we've created starts to change the conduct of the individuals within the community. Remember how habits, you are what you repeatedly do. If we change your habits, we've changed your life. That's the association. The accountability. The accountability. If I told you how to lose weight today, I could sum it up very quickly and I'd say, well, if you burn more calories than you take in, repeated over time, you will lose weight. And you're like, come on, Orrin. Everybody knows that. Well, if everybody knows that, how has Weight Watchers produced a multi-million, closing in on $1 billion business where they gather people together? They get people together in a community so that they can, listen to this, celebrate each other's success. encourage one another during the process, to take the information and ensure there's some inspiration behind it. They actually gather together in a community to talk about principles that all of them, quote, know, but they need the inspiration to do. In the same way, the green box has accountability, starting with yourself. Make commitments to yourself and follow through on them. Starting to other people in the community, you made a commitment to the team that I'm going to follow these principles, I'm going to escape the financial matrix. And then find a mentor, find someone that's produced the results you want, and look them in the eye and make commitments and keep them. That's what accountability is. You have association, you have accountability, and then the acclamation. That's recognition for a job well done. This is so unique because in the world, they actually celebrate when you go into debt. Whoa, that's a nice looking guy. Oh, congratulations on getting that new house. How many years you take? I mean, you go listen to the information and they don't even tell you what a thing cost anymore. They just tell you the monthly payments. They've got you so far down the financial matrix hole, they don't even tell you the right information anymore because they assume you don't want it. I want to walk through something because I think when you decide to go and really take this thing to the next level, so many people think, Orrin, I'm in debt. I can't afford to plug into the community to start producing different results. That's kind of like saying, I'm so tired and thirsty that I can't dig a hole to get some water. Or I'm so cold that I can't go out and cut down an old tree so that I can get some wood. There's a saying, don't wait till you're thirsty to dig your well. If you take a look at, I'll just use the average. The average credit card that has a debt on it in the United States of America, it just hit a new level. It was over $16,000 for the first time. If there's a credit card and it has debt on it, the average debt is $16,061. And the average credit card that has debt, the average payment is the minimum payment. And if you pay the minimum payment on a $16,061 over the next 20 years, somewhere around 20% interest, I think it's 18 something, but that's 20%, super easy numbers to work. 20 years, 20% interest. Do you realize that $16,000 balloons to $80,000? You owe $64,000 in just sheer interest. That's 64. How many people would like an extra $64,000 in your life? $64,000 over the next 360 months, that's 20 years. For the average person in the United States, they're pouring $177 a month. 64,000 divided by the 360 months is $177 a month poured down the financial matrix hole. And you're going to look at me and tell me that you can't afford to be on both of those subscriptions at $60 a piece? If you just took the information in the subscriptions and applied them, you would bring back 177. I just want one more example on this because I think so many people get confused on investment and expense. And investment is something in you and is absolutely essential according to Buffett. Expenses, pouring money down the financial matrix hole, is one of the craziest, most insane acts a person can do. We're trying to help you stop being insane and invest in yourself so that you can get free. I don't understand why a person would resist the avenue of escape, especially if they've lived in the matrix for 5 or 10 years. If you've been in a situation and you have not been able to change your results, probably one of the best advice I could give you is stop taking your own advice. It's not working. Change the advice. Listen to this. There were 18 million cars sold in the United States of America last year. Out of the 18 million cars, the vast majority of them were borrowed money, bank loans. But 1/3 of them were this new creation over the last decade or 15, 20 years called car leases. 1/3 of the 18 million cars are leased. What that is you get the right to drive somebody else's car and pay for all the depreciation and pay for all of the lost value of that vehicle. You basically rent the car and pay depreciation on it. If I told you out of the 6 million cars that were leased last year, the average lease payment was $412. Does anybody think you could invest in your entire business for under $412? I mean, how much is the major function, the one that's coming up? It's $125. That's $10 less, by the way. And some of you are like, I don't think I can afford $125, and yet you're driving a leased car. I'm like, I don't think you understand. Now, I'm not saying go turn in your lease and pay huge fines, whatever. What I'm saying is start applying the principles in the green box. And the next time when you're ready for a new car, you can buy a used car. I would never drive a used car. That wouldn't look cool in front of my friends. It would look really cool in this group of people that are escaping the financial matrix. So, what group are you trying to look cool for? The status group? The broke group? The tightwad group? Or the financially free group? Because if you start looking cool to the financially free group, you'll be financially free. Look at the turbocharged offense. Plug in. If you're going turbocharged offense, the first thing I'll tell you is if you're not on a marketing system right now, it's time to get on it. Don't wait till you're thirsty and dig your well. Every one of your upline are going to grab a spot and they're going to start pulling that rope. And as they start pulling that rope, hundreds and eventually thousands will be joining the community to escape the financial matrix and get the green box. Don't wait till you have that big community to try to start learning how to go turbocharged offense. Start plugging in now. Start getting that information so that when you qualify and you start building your own team, you have the information because you plugged into the marketing system. In other words, if you're going turbocharged offense, if you aspire to be like a Manasi and Lisa that are Team 1000 at this event, they've got their triple 100 in each of their organizations has a turbo 50 in the seats. These guys are community builders extraordinaire. If you aspire to be like a Robin Kenyon and go out there and go life coach and live an amazing lifestyle and be hammering on their debt and focused on being debt free over the next 18 months. If you aspire to do that, then you ought to figure out what they do and do what they do. And I'll tell you this, in my 20-some years of doing this profession, I've never seen anybody build a community that wasn't plugged into the marketing system principles. So if you don't aspire, no, I don't care about that. I just want to be debt-free and follow the box. Don't need marketing system. But if you've been sitting here this weekend and you just had a little twitch of, I think I like that turbocharged offense, then your next step, if you're not on marketing system, is get on marketing system and get that testimony, wipe out the debt so that you have the financial matrix pay for your marketing system. Look at that offense. Look at that offense. You start going, man, I went leader. And at leader level, wow, I'm making an extra $1,500, $2,000 a month. And I put 5 years. And so I've been in this thing 5 years, and I'm only making $1,500 extra dollars. How long would you have to work at your job right now to make an extra $1,500? 50 years. Look at the defense. Now notice the defense stayed steady, and then it starts going up. You start spending a little bit more, but this is the key thing is even though you're spending a little bit more, you're spending so much less because you're not paying, you're not servicing any debt. You don't owe anybody. Look at the debt. At 30 years old it peaked, and over the next 10 years you wiped it out. But look at your income still going like crazy. Your expenses, even though they went up a little bit, it didn't go up that much because you're paying for everything cash. You buy a car cash. Do they come to you and say, I want $412 a month? They don't come to you at all. It's your car. You start living really good. People are like, but Orrin, when you started making good money, for those first 2 years, you were still driving a Chevy Lumina that had a rusted front end, you poor guy. When you made your first $500,000 a year, you were still driving a rusted out Chevy Euro Lumina. Most of you don't even remember that. It turned out pretty good. But Orrin, when you made your first year of $1 million or more, you were still living in a 1,900 square foot house. You poor baby. It turned out pretty good. What I'm saying is just a few years of actually making money and not spending it will radically transform your future because then you'll have so much money put away that everything you truly want, you can set a goal for and you can pay cash for it when you get it. That is financially free, and that's your future if you're willing to follow the principles. You can do that. Look at your dreams. Your dreams are off the chart. Your dreams you can live because you not only have the income you're making, but you also have the money making money from your investments. And that's in our Beyond the Financial Fitness program. We cover all the information that when you do start making money, here's some principles to protect the money that you've made so that it can keep accumulating for you. I love this quote. You don't have to know. You came here, many of you are drinking from a fire hose right now. You're like, slow down. I got to build depth. I got to do that. A power player, I can't keep up with everything. And you don't have to the first meeting. What you have to understand is there's a plan for everything. That a group of systems engineers got together and said, let's create a system to help people escape the financial matrix. And Richard Branson, one of the most successful founders of numerous companies, he said a quote, if somebody offers you an amazing opportunity, but you are not sure you can do it, say yes, and then learn how to do it later. You have just been offered. Here's what I can tell you. There's not a person that came this weekend that when you leave, you can never say again that you didn't have a chance to get everything that you want. You didn't have a chance to live your dreams debt-free because this weekend we told you about the green box. This weekend we told you about turbocharged offense. This weekend we rolled out different strategies that you could use, and we gave you a community to access, to plug into, to live your dreams. The question is, do you have the courage to join this new community that thinks a little different? They're a little bit wacky compared to the community I'm part of. And what I call it is, it's like moving from darkness to light. All of a sudden you start seeing things that you hadn't seen before. You start thinking ways that you hadn't thought before. But I can promise you this. I know your leaders. This is the most amazing community. I know Curtis and Debbie extremely well. I know a Rob and Kenyon extremely well. I know a Manasi and Lisa extremely well. I know a Richard and Dina. I know the leaders, every single one of the life coaches that I've had. Lori and I have had the privilege to speak truth into their lives and watch massive changes and watch them wipe out debt and break free from the financial matrix. And you know what? We would love to have that honor in your group, but it's really not our choice. We're throwing the ball to you. It's your shot. Take your shot. God bless you guys.